Greece's dream of home ownership is vanishing, and rents are skyrocketing faster than wages. Greek citizens once dreamed of owning a home, but today, even renting an apartment has become a gamble. In Athens, property prices have doubled in less than a decade, wages stagnate, and every trip to the supermarket feels like a luxury. Tourism floods the streets with moneyed visitors, while locals queue for meager pay, leaving an entire generation wondering if their future still belongs in Greece, and long-term plans vanish. Home ownership in Greece was once attainable, but rising prices have made it elusive. A dwelling in central Athens that sold for around 1,300 euros per square meter in 2017 now costs about 2,500 euros, an increase of nearly 88%. Across the country, housing prices have climbed by roughly 70% since 2017. Wages have not kept up. The statutory minimum is 880 euros per month, and the average salary is around 1,380 euros. During the first half of 2025, rents in the Attica region rose by 20%, widening the gap between earnings and housing costs. Living costs compound the pressure on households. Renting a one-bedroom apartment in central Athens typically costs between 700 euros and 1,200 euros per month, while a similar unit outside the center costs 500 euros to 900 euros. Utility bills for an 85 square meters apartment add between 150 euros and 300 euros. Basic expenses for a single person, excluding rent, average about 820 euros a month. Families find it hard to cover these costs when the net benefit from the recent minimum wage rise amounts to just 33 euros 78 cents per month after taxes. The shortage of affordable housing arises from both market dynamics and policy choices. Short-term rentals through platforms like Airbnb offer property owners higher returns, prompting them to withdraw apartments from the long-term market. Yet a study by the Athens University of Economics and Business found that short-term rentals account for just 0.4% of Greece's housing stock. The same study estimated that roughly 1/4 of homes were vacant and argued that underutilized properties contribute more to scarcity than tourism rentals. Even so, property owners often prefer renting to visitors, further reducing long-term supply and putting additional pressure on tenants who depend on longer leases. To understand why housing has become so expensive, one must consider Greece's fiscal history. In the 1970s and 1980s, governments borrowed heavily to fund infrastructure, pensions, and public sector jobs. By 2001, when Greece adopted the euro, public debt stood at 97% of GDP. Tax evasion was widespread, reducing revenue and complicating debt repayment. When the global financial crisis struck in 2008, investors lost confidence and credit markets tightened. Between 2009 and 2014, Greece's economy shrank by over a quarter, and unemployment reached nearly 30%. To avoid default, the country accepted bailouts from European institutions and the International Monetary Fund, agreeing to deep spending cuts, tax hikes, and privatizations. Airports, ports, the power grid, and other assets were sold or leased to foreign firms. Wages and pensions were cut, and public services declined. These measures saved euro membership, but eroded living standards. With manufacturing and agriculture faltering, Greece doubled down on tourism. The country promoted its islands, beaches, and historical sites, simplified visa processes, and invested in hotels. Visitor arrivals rose from fewer than 20 million in 2009 to about 41 million in 2024, and tourist spending reached roughly 22 billion euros. Tourism now accounts for more than a quarter of the economy, and nearly 2 million Greeks, around 1 in 5, derive their income from it. However, tourism jobs are often seasonal and low-paid. The average wage in the sector is roughly 1,100 euros a month. When the summer season ends, many workers struggle to find employment or rely on savings. The concentration of tourism in popular districts also contributes to housing pressures as landlords convert long-term rentals into holiday accommodation. Foreign investment has added to the strain. In 2013, Greece introduced a golden visa program offering residency permits to non-EU citizens who purchase property. The initial threshold of 250,000 euros drew investors from around the world. Over the following decade, the scheme generated more than 5.5 billion euros, but most of the 16,000 properties bought were converted into rentals. Profits from these rentals flowed abroad, and the additional demand contributed to rising prices. By 2024, thousands of applications were pending. Critics argued that the program made housing less affordable for locals. Responding to these concerns, lawmakers restructured the Golden Visa scheme in August 2024. Investors seeking property in prime areas such as Athens, Piraeus, Thessaloniki, and certain islands must now spend at least 800,000 euros on a residence of 120 square meters or more. In less central regions, the threshold is 400,000 euros with the same size requirement. A third tier, still at 250,000 euros, applies to projects that convert commercial buildings into homes or restore historic properties. These changes aim to divert investment away from oversaturated markets and toward preservation and regional development. Analysts view the reform as a significant shift designed to protect local housing. Local authorities are also taking action. The municipality of Athens introduced a 7-point plan in 2025 that includes affordable housing programs for low-income youth and vulnerable families, pilot projects for social housing, an audit of municipal properties to repurpose unused buildings, and a housing management agency. The plan will create a housing observatory to monitor market conditions and protect historic neighborhoods. It also restricts new short-term rental licenses in central districts. Urban planners stress that data-driven regulation is essential, and they urge policymakers to address the high vacancy rate alongside tourism's impact. By freeing up idle homes and offering incentives for long-term leases, cities could relieve pressure on residents and maintain community cohesion. Despite recent wage increases, earnings remain low relative to living costs. The government raised the minimum wage to 830 euros in April 2024 and to 880 euros in April 2025, with a goal of 950 euros by 2027. However, high taxes and insurance contributions mean workers keep little of these increases. The average salary of 1,380 euros leaves little room for saving when rent and daily expenses absorb most income. Salaries vary by industry. Information technology workers earn higher wages, whereas tourism employees earn about 1,100 euros. Many households rely on multiple incomes or support from relatives abroad to make ends meet. The housing crisis has wider social consequences. Since 2009, more than 500,000 Greeks have emigrated, many of them young professionals seeking better prospects. Each year, around 50,000 citizens leave the country. Greece's birth rate has fallen to roughly 1.3 children per woman, among the world's lowest. With fewer young people and a growing population of retirees, the country faces a shrinking workforce and rising pension obligations. As communities contract, local schools and businesses close, further eroding social life. While most citizens struggle, a small elite benefits. During the bailout years, well-connected companies acquired stakes in privatized infrastructure and secured lucrative contracts. They profited from ports, airports, and utility networks that once belonged to the state. Construction projects sometimes cost multiples of similar works in other countries, despite lower labor costs. Investors who purchased property through the Golden Visa collected rent from high-end tenants while local families were priced out. The crisis has facilitated a transfer of wealth from ordinary Greeks to foreign investors and domestic elites. There is still a path toward recovery if policymakers balance competing interests. The reformed Golden Visa program, along with limits on short-term rentals and municipal housing initiatives, could stabilize the market. Addressing the high number of vacant homes and promoting long-term leases may free up housing without harming tourism. Raising wages, improving tax collection, and investing in industries beyond tourism could bolster incomes and diversify the economy. The goal is to ensure that growth benefits residents. Greece's experience illustrates the risks of over-reliance on tourism and external capital and shows the importance of sound fiscal policy and social safeguards. Recent reforms signal a willingness to address these problems, but their success depends on implementation and broader structural change. If Greece can align tourism with housing affordability, reinvest in public services, and support fair wages, it may rebuild trust and stem the loss of its youth. For more analysis on pressing issues and to help spread awareness, please share your perspective in the comments and remember to like and subscribe.